All right. Oh, let us get going. Um, 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 um. Has anything interesting happened in the last 24 hours? Oh my. Life is so amusing, isn't it? Mind you, much more amusing from slightly north of the 49th parallel. That's better. Oh god, what's at my feet? Is it a spy drone? I don't know. Okay. Is Donald Trump after me? I mean again. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Sorry, my brain is just not braining today for whatever reason. It's not that I stayed up late watching election coverage because I genuinely don't care that much. Um, I woke up this morning and, to social media on fire, which is just great. And, friends I've had since high school being like, we cannot have a relationship with a fascist country. And I'm like, very sane reaction you're having right now. Completely, that seems completely reasonable. I'm right there with you. Don't talk to the crazy people. Yeah, please.
What was your election prediction?
I thought Trump was going to win.
Yeah.
It just seemed obvious in the closing days. Like, I don't know if having fun is like a legitimate political sort of indicator, but it looked like JD Vance and Donald Trump were having fun, and everyone on the other side looked utterly miserable, which just told me that they were not having a good time. And their internal polling was saying, we're going to lose and we're going to lose big. And um, yeah, it is what it is, right? But yeah, I was like, oh, I know the phonometer is not like a valid political measure. But when someone's having that much fun and like doing the YMCA on stage, there's just this like energy, and I don't know. It just seemed inevitable. I did not think he was going to win. Like I thought it was going to be a squeaker, and he sort of crushed her under his oversized feet. So I'm a little surprised by that because I thought it would be much tighter than it was. But he won like Latinos and blacks in big numbers, and I'm just like, and even women didn't go as much against him as I thought they would. So yeah,
The women were like pretty much 50-50 split. It was like a 54% like did not vote for him, and then a 46% voted for him.
yeah, which I thought it was going to be like 70-30. And I was if Kamala Harris had any hope, I thought that was going to be it, that women were going to come out in big numbers against Trump, and it just didn't happen, right? So 4 years, 4 more years, 4 more years. It should be interesting. It should be an interesting 4 years. Oh, he makes me tired. I was so ready for him to be gone from the political scene because his energy is exhausting, and everyone else's response to him is kind of exhausting. It's like he's a fascist. I'm like, okay. I mean, we've been through this. Like nothing ended in the first 4 years that he was there. I'm sure democracy will be fine. Probably, maybe. I'm gonna go with definitively democracy might be okay. Anyway, I try not to get too excited about this, and I usually stop paying attention when people start calling each other Nazis because I'm like, you know who the real Nazis are? The Nazis. You know who aren't Nazis? Everybody you call a Nazi half the time. But like I said, I hate everyone when it comes to politics, and I'm looking forward to now a completely unhinged Canadian political season where I'm sure Justin Trudeau accuses Pierre Poilievre of both being a Nazi and aligned with that Nazi Trump in some way, or having a secret agenda, or whatever complete madness comes out of it. So, I can't wait till the next Canadian election. It should be absolutely spectacularly fun. Oh, anyway, my political views aside. By the way, my political views are politics sucks, and politicians suck. They all suck in kind of equal measure. Some suck more than others. And sometimes, like with the current premier of Alberta, my view is that's great, whatever the hell you're talking about. Could you fix the hospitals and schools now, please? Instead of whatever it is you're talking about that isn't central to my life. So there's that. Please do your job. Oh, you're not? Oh, you're some distracty bullshit? Okay. Well, that sounds about right, which is why I hate all politicians. I should go into politics and then I could hate myself more than I currently do. All right. Anyway, sorry, I'm in a goofy mood. I need reading week more badly than you could possibly imagine. My next class, of which two of my students are here in this class, I'm like, I'm sorry, I haven't fully marked your papers yet, and I'm so sorry. I can't. I've been dealing with weird financial things, not personally, but for the project I'm working on. Our bank, I think I told you, our bank account got canceled. So now the university's like, oh, we can step in and make the payments for you. I'm like, great, that's perfect. And they're like, for a fee of $2 per transaction. And I'm like, but we are you. And you are us. But you have to charge us $2 per transaction. Oh, and if a transaction fails to go through, it's $5 for it to be canceled. So I'm like, what? Anyway, so then a meeting follows the meeting I had where the finance people tell me we have to charge you like $9 per transaction. It's like, okay, that's not going to eat into the budget for doing actual research at all for what I could do out of a personal bank account for, what's the word? Free. Oh my God. And so anyway, this is like the reason your papers aren't marked, Marina and Amy, is because yesterday I would literally was in one meeting, debrief with my bosses. They're like, what the fuck? And I'm like, I'll find out what the fuck. So I emailed someone else and then had a meeting with them, and it was like, and they're like, well, those are just the rules. I'm like, but the rules are stupid. Can the rules not be stupid? And they're like, we will look into making the rules less stupid. And I'm like, why? Anyway, this is my life. So I need to quit one of my 3 jobs. This is, I think, the thing that has now come across to me very strongly, is I have too many jobs, and at least one of them is causing me to lose all my hair. Mission accomplished, I guess. Okay, let's talk content analysis. Aside from my jokes about how crazy my life is, and why the university charges another part of the university $2 to send money to someone. That will never make sense to me. All right, so what were we talking about? Oh, one thing. Sorry. Lab tomorrow, right? So I have confirmed with L'Oreal, she is alive. She has emerged from her hidey hole and confirmed that she will be there tomorrow. And will be helping me in the next few days mark your major lab. That is on the agenda as well. So yes, I also haven't done that. And that was on my agenda for yesterday until meetings. Death. Oh, and then election. Okay. And then fight with 2 of my children. No, you can't have any more candy. Why not? Because your blood sugar is stratospheric. Aside from that, nothing. Oh, diabetes. Okay. I hate Halloween too. Anyway, that's not the point. Okay, so lab tomorrow. You'll be working on research questions for qualitative methods. That mini lab is due not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. So at the end of reading week, I'm sure you will all hand it in 5 minutes to midnight after you get back from your fabulous vacations, which no one in this room, but I'm fairly well assured that some people have already left because they told me. Could I write my exam early? Because, I'm leaving on Tuesday. And I'm like, but there's a whole week of class after Tuesday. Anyway, not important. I don't blame you. If I could leave, I would. Okay, so fun times. Lab tomorrow, mini lab due after that, and then, I said after the break, we're gonna combine mini lab 5 and 6 into one super mini lab. That'd be an interesting kind of dog also. The super mini lab would be something, interesting. I have the strangest thoughts, I'm sorry. And I just blurt them out because I'm clearly sleep deprived. So yeah, and then I will get you your major labs back, and we're careening towards the end of the course. All right, content analysis. We were talking about stuff last time, and we ended with this slide. Okay. It's the funny thing. Content analysis is really fun. When you write it to be in a textbook, you can make it sound really boring. But I guarantee you, there is no, to my mind, no more fun qualitative method than content analysis, because you can analyze just about anything and you can have a great time doing it, and it's super cheap and free and very, very easy. Okay, so when we talk about visual objects, right? Whether that's, photos, you could talk about videos, paintings or whatever. So you have to ask, how representative are they? Is the photograph available typical of the event or the episode that was depicted, right? How typical is it, right? And again, with a lot of historical research, this becomes an important question. What's not photographed might be very significant. And this is, sort of your counterfactual, which I will write as CF. Counterfactuals can be really difficult because, when someone's taking a photograph or a video, they're obviously choosing certain things to focus on, right? What's not photographed could be very significant, but it's often hard to prove that other things were going on. I just spilled tea all over myself because I forgot my good tumbler at home today. And I only have my Tears of My Students one, but it's dirty and I didn't have time to wash it. So now I'm slightly moist. All good. Because I have this stupid teacup. All right, selection bias, filtering, right? What's chosen to be photographed, what's chosen to be kept. This was especially an issue when we were dealing with film, right? With film cameras. I'm sorry, somehow I broke Ashley and Marie. Oh. Now they're laughing. I'm trying not to laugh. You're making me laugh. Please stop. Hello. Try not to crack up. Okay. Okay, what's chosen to be photographed, again, it was much more or kind of limited when we were dealing with film, back in the Stone Age or the 90s, whichever. Today, obviously, people take a lot more pictures because, digital photography takes no resources. And what's chosen to be kept right now, like filtering in terms of digital photography, what actually shows up, in people's collections, that's a question too. Sometimes people might get rid of very important pictures. Okay, government documents. We shall call this the Trump files. No, I don't know. So, government documents, it can include all sorts of things. Census information, voting records, official reports, government documents, memos. Increasingly email, right? If you're in government, every stupid email you have is technically, government, some kind of official government document. Email, text messages, inter-office communications, anything like that. So generally speaking, when we talk about, government documents, we see them as authentic and having meaning, right? Because they're generated by government agencies in some sense, and they have meaning because they're being communicated for a reason. Are they credible, right? Are they biased? What does that bias reveal, right? And generally speaking, especially when you're talking, politicians or high-level bureaucrats, they often are agenda-driven, right? They're not unbiased. They're doing things for a reason. So figuring out what that agenda is can be difficult. Do I have another slide on government documents? Okay, I don't, but I want to say a couple other things because these are really interesting. One of the big problems is that often government will go to virtually any length to keep these things from getting out, keep them secret. And any organization that works for the government or works in conjunction with, say, public funds, technically needs to make a bunch of things FOIPable, right, or available to freedom of information requests, and will go to great lengths to not do this. So I'll give you an example. So I've told you before, I did a research study 2018, 2019 essentially for Covenant Health, right? So the organization that runs the Misericordia and Grey Nuns Hospital and a couple of other things. Now, the money did not come from Covenant Health. It came from like this secondary charity that they had set up called Catholic Health of Alberta, specifically because for whatever reason, the CEO of Covenant Health did not want any communication between me and them to be subject to FOIP. So if I was dealing with Covenant Health, everything's FOIPable. If I was dealing with Catholic Health of Alberta, which is technically a charitable arm, then nothing is FOIPable. So they were like, okay, this project is officially being funded by Catholic Health of Alberta, so nothing is FOIPable. So if you get freedom of information requests, you can throw them in the garbage. Now, as it turns out, they were being paranoid. Nobody gave a shit, as it should have been, actually. Because what did we find out? Catholics like Catholic organizations and volunteer for them. Woo. Shocking, shocking research. But often you'll see, freedom of information request, people designing structures to get around freedom of information requests when they're government. Also, if you have ever, and I have some friends who are journalists, and they do freedom of information requests all the time. One of the things that's true, especially in Canada, is that in my office today, I was trying to have a Zoom meeting, and my office is on the 4th floor. So the construction that you hear there is right below me. And I'm honest to God, no one could hear anything I was saying because all was like, I love this building. May it sink into the river valley. Well, I'm not here, and none of you either. Okay, now that we got that out of the way. A lot of government documents, what you find is, slow walk or redaction. So if you've ever seen, you see this sometimes, right? The official government document was released and half of it is blacked out. That's called redaction. So government and this obviously, is a problem for things like credibility. What are we to make of this information? So in theory, all government documents are supposed to be FOIPable, right? And you should be, unless they're top secret, like which liberal MPs are apparently working for the Chinese. That can't be told to anyone, but everything else is fine apparently. So they will slow walk it, right? They will lose your freedom of information request, and all sorts of stuff, right? And they'll take 8 to 10 weeks or 2 years to get back to you with a freedom of information request. Apparently, some American researchers, which it's weird, it's a different culture. I've heard that in America you can do a freedom of it's not a FOIP, it's FOIA, freedom of information and access, I think, or FOIA or FOIA, and apparently you can get stuff in 2 weeks, right? Or sometimes 2 days. So the US is a different kind of culture. Government documents are really important though, and obviously it can tell you a lot of things, but sometimes they're not too keen on giving you things because government is weird and secretive at the best of times. Even when, someone comes in with sunny ways and he's like, we're going to be the most transparent government in history, that doesn't turn out to be the case. Okay. Official documents from private sources. So, this could be any document, from companies and other private organizations. So this could be financial reports, research that they're doing, employee manuals. That's an E. I don't know what it's supposed to look like. Anything, right? Anything that they produce. These can be official documents from private sources. If you can get your hands on them, they are likely to be authentic and meaningful. There is a problem though. Often what is kind of made available to researchers, is biased based on a lot of things. They are only going to release publicly typically things so there are sort of certain things that they have to release, especially say if they're a publicly traded company. So things like financial statements, right? Because, if you're a publicly listed company, you have what's called a fiduciary responsibility. right? And there are reporting responsibilities that go along with that. So you have to report your finances accurately, or you could be subject to a class action lawsuit from your investors and government investigations for misrepresenting your finances. So like if you're going to look for things that are credible and meaningful, if you know the finance lingo, financial documents for private organizations is probably your best source. Everything else, research, employee manuals, emails, internal memos, they're probably authentic and meaningful, although stuff that gets officially released, there is a good chance that it can be biased based on what these organizations want. And unlike government, they have no need to disclose, right? So if you're going to get these kinds of documents, you have to be sneaky or lucky or sneakily lucky. But sneaky is in there somewhere. Often you would have to have a source, someone who's leaking these things to you, handing over documents, and obviously that's going to be hard. Now, if you get leaked documents, they're likely to be very authentic, and probably pretty credible because, obviously people weren't expecting them to be seen. But officially released documents, right, credibility is a big question, and the representativeness can be a big question as well, right? Because access to information requires permission, and what kind of information is the researcher granted access to? It's probably, right, I'm going to draw a little smiley face, because it's probably the stuff that the company thinks is going to make them look good. Smile. That's a terrible smiley face. Looks like a little angry. I don't know. Art with the computer stylus is not maybe the greatest. Although I think with this one I can push really hard and make the lines thicker, or gently and make the lines thinner. I don't know. All right, enough art time. You're like, those look exactly the same. Okay, so how am I doing for time? All right, let's talk about US elections. No, I'm kidding. Okay, these are my favorites, to be honest. Because this is where I cut my teeth, and where I did a lot of my dissertation work, was in these sorts of mass media outputs. So newspapers, magazines, TV, film, YouTube videos, advertisements, radio, whatever, magazines, whatever you want, right? So anything that's a mass media output technically would fall into this category. Authenticity. Authorship can be really, really hard to ascertain. Now, this was mostly true in newspapers, right? Because newspapers often had, this is from the editorial board, or things without an actual author, right? So it would just be one of the newspaper columns written without authorship actually there. Obviously, in the internet age, right? And think about like a post on Twitter with, I guess people don't use the egg avatar, but one of these random Twitter accounts that you don't exactly know who it is, right? Because I follow a lot of Ukraine war stuff. There's one which I think is probably a Russian bot called Lord Bibo, and I'm like, who is that? Who is this person? They claim to be American, but they're not making their, or Armchair Warlord is another one that I see a lot, right? And they're interesting, but who is it actually talking, right? Could it be Vladimir Putin? Now, I'm sure Vlad has better things to do than write Twitter posts, but, could it be? Who knows, right? Or could it be, some schlub at a bot farm in Slovenia, right? Or in Kazan or Beijing or something. Who knows? So authorship, with mass media outputs can be hard to ascertain. The other thing is when you're dealing with things like TV and film, right? There are questions of authorship, like who, when you go to a movie and you spend the last 10 minutes waiting for that after credit scene and you see like that list of names, who's the author of that film? We tend to be like, it was the director, or, in some cases, I think it was, I can't remember which film it was. I want to say it was like Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness had 16 writers. Not a very good movie, by the way. strangely, with 16 writers, it wasn't terribly coherent. So who's the author of that film, right? Is it the director? Is it the cinematographer? Authorship can be hard to determine, right? So we'll often, when we talk about film, we're often like the director, but the director is a small part of it. And if you listen to J.J. Abrams' pathetic whining, he's the director who ruined both Star Trek and Star Wars. And I'm still a little salty about it. He's like, well, Disney didn't give me creative control. Yeah, I hope you die in a ditch. Stupid J.J. Abrams. He's ugly, and Lost was a dumb show. So there. It just had a really bad ending. Some of the show was okay. I'm not salty or bitter about it at all. I didn't waste years of my life watching Lost for no reason. Anyway, is J.J. Abrams the author of Star Wars? That bad one? Which one was bad? Oh, we'll say The Force Awakens. And The Rise of Skywalker. One of the only movies I ever walked out of in disgust. I'm like, fuck, Palpatine's back. I'm leaving. Goodbye. I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I still don't know how the movie ended, so don't spoil it for me. I might be on an airplane one time, and it's the only thing I can watch. I take it that Skywalker rose. Aside from that, I know nothing. Anyway, but who's the author, right? Because he says he had no creative control. Was it like the Disney corporate board or Mickey Mouse in a Darth Vader suit? I don't know, right? But authorship for these like big, complex media. I'm on like a comedy roll today. I don't know what's happening. Who's the author of that text, right? It can be very, very hard to determine. Because, who knows? If it was like a board decision or one of the 17 writers, who knows who actually makes the decisions? Credibility, right? Often uncovering error or distortion is the object of analysis. Sometimes, like, what is going, like in mass media text, especially we're talking about news and magazines and kind of the more serious side, less the TV and film side. Are there distortions, right? A lot of the work of looking at these sources sometimes is figuring out where the bias is. Where is bias? Because you're looking for, problems with the credibility. And then your representativeness. How representative, you could take certain articles or films or TV shows or whatever out of context, but how representative are they of things overall, right? And then context is important, and these things can be lost easily, culture, humor, all those sorts of things. Oh, no. I forgot this was here. Okay, virtual output. Virtual output is an absolute, how shall we say? It's a bit of a disaster when it comes to content analysis. Like, you can do some really interesting content analysis, right? Like email, websites, email, listservs, discussion groups, chat rooms, if you want to really plunge into the dark depths, you can do, I had not a friend, but an acquaintance, do content analysis on YouTube comments, and I think eventually fell into a deep depression. And I will always think that those two things were related. Just because, and she would say, like, it is a very depressing place to be when you're reading YouTube comments all day because people are not very nice. But you can look at anything that's online potentially as an object of research. And again, one thing you can't do is say infiltrate a chat group pretending to be a member and misrepresenting yourself, possibly getting people to make statements that align with what you want to find out. But if things are, posted publicly, right? So anything on Reddit is fair game. Anything on Twitter X is fair game. On Facebook and all of that stuff is fair game. I went on Facebook for the first time in months, and all it was like mattress ads. So I don't know what's happened to Facebook. It was super fun. I was like, oh, I guess I need a mattress, apparently. Facebook must know. Okay. So I wonder if it's like tracking me via Fitbit and it knows I sleep like crap. I don't know. We'll see. So authenticity. Yeah, again, anybody can set up a website or a Twitter account or a Facebook page. So the knowledge claims might not be valid. Are there wrong and misinformed things online? I hadn't noticed. Right, so you could do a lot of interesting analysis, but it's always with a grain of salt. I was actually thinking I should draw a grain of salt, but then I realized it would be like this. There, that's my grain of salt. So there we go. Right, so anything online you need to take with a grain of salt. Posted information might not be correct. You might fall into the realm of the Andrew Tates of the world, who, by the way, a very interesting object of study potentially, but to take his views as correct or credible would be, I believe, to commit a foundational error in thinking. Okay, so, and how representative is it? And I guess one of the big problems, with anything online is, how to put this? You can engage in what I would refer to generously as nut picking. And a lot of scholars do this, right, with online. You know what nut picking is? You find the craziest view online, like the crazy person, the nut, and you or the nuts, and you try to pass that off as representative of a whole section of people, right? So you can find, if you went and found Nick Fuentes, who's a neo-Nazi creepoid, and you were like, this is conservative media, right? That would be, I think, an example of nut picking. So how representative are the outputs? You have to be careful that you're picking things that are representative. Yeah. The other thing is, I get to use one of my favorite words. Online content is evanescent. It's a wonderful word that just means constantly changing. Evanescent. The more you know. There. I've improved your vocabulary today. It's a fun word to say. It's evident, it's always changing. Search engines, are there more than one? Oh, right. There's Bing. There's Google and Bing and DuckDuckGoose or whatever. I don't know. I know it's DuckDuckGo. I'm just being dumb. Okay, search engines vary and only access a portion of sites, and everybody just uses Google anyway, so who cares? And yeah, bias selection for websites or for search engines, might mean you're not seeing certain things, and increasingly, right, filtering is happening via search engines. Okay, and then meaning. What is the context of the website? There might be a web speak or language barrier, or you're old like me, and someone says, man, that lady is sure brat, and you're like, Urban Dictionary, explain brat. That did not help. What does brat mean? I still don't know. Or based. It took me forever to figure out what the hell based meant, because the Urban Dictionary definition was somewhat unhelpful. And I think it just means really authentic, but I still don't really know. So language barriers, especially with fast shifting online language cultures. And I mean, there used to be, and I think this is where this is coming from, people who are computer nerds would use an alternate form of spelling called leet speak, which they would write as if you were leet, it was L33T or leet. I know this is early internet stuff, which I think is what the textbook is reflecting, right? There can be a language barrier online, or if you're 40 or more and you just don't understand what the kids are saying anymore, which becomes very awkward when you teach a sociology of youth class. But I digress. Okay, how are we doing for time? Okay, all right. So, content analysis, right? Content analysis requires its own kind of set of tools. So basically, when you're analyzing content, you have to try to systematize it. Now, when we watch that video, way back at the beginning of this unit, if I can find it. Nope, that is not what I wanted. I don't want subtitles, stop it. What have I done? That's kind of fun, actually. It's really slow though. All right, I think I turned that off. Oh, I realized I should maybe be okay. I tried this one time last year, and the subtitling was so bad that it was just nonsense and it was distracting, but hilarious. This one, yes. Oh, so if we go back, to this video, which I will now go away from, but I just wanted to remind you. Systematizing the way you do content analysis can be really interesting. And like what he was talking about in that video, right? It was like, okay, we're interested in fruit juice commercials, so we're gonna watch Saturday morning, and in every time block, we're gonna split it into like 15-minute time blocks, and we're gonna count the number of juice and cereal ads in each. And that's a way of doing kind of content analysis that's very quantitative. Oh, my other pen has an eraser on the back. Okay. Other ways of doing it, though, that are a little bit more qualitative is looking at meaning, right? And so there's a lot of ways of looking at meaning, and if you have been in my critical media studies class, you've already done this with me, so don't spoil it for everyone. Okay, one of these, famously is things like, and people have been trying to create systems to systematize understanding media, and particularly like text for a long time. Kind of starts with this movement. You go back to the 1960s, and you have a movement called semiotics, right? Which is trying to figure out the science of signs, or basically the science of symbols, right? And it comes out of linguistics, and it's really kooky because there's this idea that, there's the sign, which is a combination of the signified, that dog, and the signifier, the word dog. And out of that, you get a sign that you use to represent that thing. Okay, that's very abstract. Catholicism and pop culture. Has anyone taken that class with me yet? Oh, good. Something for the future for you. I torment my students with these 3 tools of kind of content analysis from Roland Barthes in that class. So much so that 2/3 of the way through the class, the class begged me to stop. And I was like, okay, we can drop it. Okay, so to understand, something symbolically, we can use kind of 3 levels of meaning. And this would be a way that you would, analyze, say, well, hey, let me show you something like this, which is my favorite print ad ever, which I call the Axe Body Spray Angel. And why do I like it? Because it's symbolically rich and actually really ridiculous. So it makes me laugh every single time. Okay, forward, backward, forward, backward. So 3 levels of meaning that you can talk about. Denotation, or the most immediate level of meaning, which is just you describe what you see. Connotation, which is, okay, after you've described what you see, what is implied? So, you go through the checkout line at some grocery store, and you see an image on the cover of Cosmo magazine. What does that woman imply, right? Is it like, like the female ideal, or the kind of cultural idea of femininity or sexiness or whatever, right? Or you see the big bro, on the men's magazine with the rippling pectorals, right? And you're like, what does that represent? Is it masculinity, a kind of idealized male version, or whatever it happens to be, right? Fast cars, same sorts of things. What is represented by it? And then myth is really, why does it work? Thought I heard my phone buzz, and that's always a bad sign. Okay, so why does it work, right? So what broad set of cultural assumptions and beliefs are being reinforced by a particular media text? Okay, so this Roland Barthes, so he writes this in a book called Mythologies. That's Barthes. And he talks about this particular thing to do denotation, connotation, and myth. I screwed that up. I must fix it. Okay. Denotation, connotation, and myth. right? So this is what the cover of Paris Match. And what does he say? So how do you understand the content of something like this? He says, break it down symbolically. So on the level of denotation, you have, African boy saluting in uniform. Okay, easy. At the level of connotation, it's probably like pride, nationalism, and all of those things. And then the level of myth, which, by the way, no matter how many times I teach this, I never quite get my students to completely grasp myth, which is what makes it fun. I'm a bad teacher. I won't ponder that too much. I've worked on this for years, and it never seems to get that much better. It's a really abstract concept, but Barthes thinks that it's like the myth here is that France makes the lives of the colonies better. That's a terrible smiley face. Happier face. Okay, now it's just creepy. Okay, I don't know what I did there. So, right, it's the glory of the French Empire is the myth that's being propagated. So why would people look at this cover and say, France is great? Because it's appealing, it's like, Barthes is like, he's probably, in this military uniform, saluting the great French tricolor flag, showing his pride in the French Empire and all that it's done for him. So one of the things with content analysis that is sometimes seen as a problem is it can be very subjective and involves a lot of reading into things. Okay, we got like 5 minutes. So let's have a little fun. We'll skip the rhino. Actually, let's do the rhino car. That one will be easier. Okay, we're going to do this really quickly. Denotation, what do you see? This is the easy one. Volunteer for easy. What do you see on this picture? A rhino. All right, we got our rhino. We've got our, what's there? A car, okay. And what's the background look like? Industrial, okay, good. Some kind of industrial setting. All right, so what's the connotation? Like if you think rhino, like without thinking too much, don't think about it too much. What are rhinos? Heavy. They are heavy. What else? They're strong. Anything else? Aggressive, yes. Got to sell this to the soccer mom. Okay, so rhinos are heavy, strong, aggressive. So why would the people making this ad think that this works? What are they selling? Like if imagine yourself in a few years, you're a soccer mom, right? You got to take the kids to soccer practice or hockey practice. You're driving a lot. You're a little burned out. Maybe there's egg in your hair. Who knows? This is why you shave your head. No egg in your hair if you shave your head. And you see this ad. What would make this resonate for you? Like why would anyone want to buy this Mitsubishi Rhino car?
It's the same, like the car's really durable and safe, and what they do to like A and B aggressively and on time and safely.
Right, and it's powerful, right? You become the rhino, which is what I think every woman wants to hear. Become the rhino. But right, it's part of that myth. Like SUVs are tough and rugged and yeah, aggressive. So and safe, right? Because what's safer than a rhino? To the rhino, not to the other things around it. Because I assume being near a rhino is dangerous. But that's the mythology, right? That's the myth that it's trying to sell is like, and rugged, I would say rugged, aggressive, I'm not going to write it again, and individualism, right? Okay. We don't have time for my friend, the Axe Body Spray Angel. This is too semantically overloaded. There is so much going on here, right? But like, okay, if I was going to say like the connotation, right? So we all know there's a sexy angel in a motel room. She's broken the bed and fallen down from heaven, right? Right there. So the connotation here is, obviously is like kind of dirty, sexy. You know, and I think there's a sort of, oh, you know, it's an angel, so angels are purity. So why does this work from the level of mythology? Because what Axe body spray wants you to think as a user of Axe body spray, which I presume are young men, is, right, Axe body spray is going to let you get a lady like that. But what's at the level of mythology? I think it's that, you know, male sexuality exists basically to, let's just say, deflower the pure, right? That women are supposed to be pure, men are supposed to try and take that purity from them, right? And Axe body spray is going to help you get there, right? Axe will get you here, or actually more properly, I think, here. Anyway, so that's, you know, this is the kind of way you can do content analysis by like breaking down symbols into these 3 levels of meaning. And if you want to do this endlessly, come take Catholicism and pop culture in the winter. It'll be fun. We do this for like a bunch of movies, like the Da Vinci Code. It'll be great. Okay, yay! My next class is in 10 minutes. Okay, we'll leave it there. Keep an eye on your email in case my burnout reaches critical and I decide to cancel class on Friday, in which case I will be sick. I feel something coming on already, which I should probably turn off the recording before I say that. Oh my, I feel so unwell. Whatever will I do?